Hi guys, and welcome back to Christian Nerds Unite. Today, we're going to talk all about goal setting, and we'll get to that right after this. The beginning of a new year is when many people start thinking about their goals, and I'm no exception. The Goal Process 101 ebook has helped me clarify the best and most achievable goals for me, plus helped me set a plan in place to accomplish them. I mean, this podcast is just one of the results of using the Goal Process 101 ebook. Check it out at christiannerdsunite.com/goals. It helped me. I'm sure it can help you too. Now, back to the show. Hey, welcome back. Before we get started, I want to read just a couple of scriptures that kind of deal with the ideas of goals and planning. They're all from Proverbs, as you might expect. Proverbs 16:3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely as haste leads to poverty. Proverbs 29:18. Where there is no vision, the people perish. But he that keepeth the law, happy is he. Now, why do I want to talk about goals today? Well, it's the beginning of a new year. Happy 2021. And people had a pretty hard year last year. But, it's a new year. And lots of memes floating around the internet that say, don't claim this as your year. I never claim any year as my year. It's not a thing for me. But, this is the time of year that people think about starting something new, setting New Year's resolutions, setting goals. And I just want to talk a little bit about that. First, let's start with resolutions. Now, I'm not fond of resolutions, and New Year's resolutions tend to fizzle out because they don't tend to be well planned. People pick them and they go with them, and they expect it to be something they're doing daily when they've never made it a habit before, and they don't have a real plan for it. They just say, this is my thing. And usually they fizzle out in a few days, a few weeks, a month at most. And then there are those select few that are so doggedly determined that they manage to do it all year. And I'm super proud of you. But those do tend to be few and far between. So I want to talk about goals. Now, why do I not like resolutions? Well, like I said, they tend to fizzle out. But here's the real thing. Resolutions, as a general rule, are very generic. I want to lose weight this year. What does that mean? How much weight? What do you weigh now? What do you want to weigh at the end of the year? What does losing weight look like? How do you plan to do that even? Also, resolutions rarely have a defined end date. It's usually, I'm going to exercise at least twice a week this year. Well, what's your end date? Is it never? Is it December 31st? What if you don't accomplish that? A goal is going to have some kind of end date, and we'll get to that here in a few moments. Like I said, they fizzle out. You've set resolutions before, and they always fall to the wayside, usually when life gets in the way. And why is that? They just don't stay in front of you. Now, here's the key. I encourage you to write goals that actually encourage you to keep going. You really want to achieve. But let's talk about what a goal is. Jim Rohn, he's one of my favorite, I call him a business philosopher. Definitely, he was a believer because of some of the things he would say back in the day. I remember hearing multiple times he would tell a story. He would say, an ancient book has a story in it. And then for those who have ears to hear, you would know this was a Bible story. For those who were in the business world and not Christians, you might have just thought it was a good story that equated to the subject he was talking about. But for those in the know, we all knew this is a Bible story, and this makes sense for what we're talking about right now. Honestly, that's one of my favorite things about Jim Rohn. But Jim Rohn said, one of the amazing things we have been given as humans is the unquenchable desire to have dreams of a better life and the ability to accomplish goals to live out those dreams. How do you set goals? And I actually posted on my personal Facebook as well as the Christian Nerds Unite last year. As bad as last year was, I actually managed to accomplish 10 of the goals on my goals list. Now, you may say, you accomplished 10 goals? How many goals do you have? Well, a lot. I set a lot of goals every year, but they're not all designed to be finished in a year. Now, I got lucky. Actually, one or two of my 5-year goals managed to be accomplished last year due to some extenuating circumstances that I didn't expect. Things just fell into place. But most of those goals were 1-year goals. Some of them I was actively working toward. Some of them were written goals that I hadn't put a lot of thought into, but because of the nature of the situation, I was able to go ahead and accomplish them. Now, what is this all leading to? Setting goals and keeping them in front of you keeps you sharp. It helps you think through what's going on in your world and gives you a framework that you can work within. Now, I had several people actually message me about this. How did you accomplish 10 goals? And I actually mentioned the book that you may have heard advertised on this show several times, The Goal Process 101. I actually mentioned the book and referred them to the website. This is the process I use. I'm going to give you some of that right now, just some of the basics. And here's what I like to do when I start setting goals. Number one is I start with the past. Now, what do I mean by that? Starting with the past means I write down at least 5 things that I am proud of that I have accomplished. Now, this is super important if this is your first time ever setting goals. Why is that? Because once you've set the stage, once you say, these are 5 things I have managed to do that I am proud of, that starts your brain working. It starts your brain saying, you know what? I do accomplish things. And I know a lot of people that have a super negative attitude that, I can't accomplish things. I never accomplish things. I fail all the time. Starting with this in mind, it changes your mindset. It turns it around and you can go, you know what? There are things I have accomplished. Maybe I haven't thought of them in years. Now, these don't have to be things you did last year. These could be things you've done throughout your entire lifetime. When I do this list, one of my first things is, I have a great wife and great kids. Now, is that an accomplishment on my part? Some of it. I chose well. My wife and I just celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary over the holidays. So that was wonderful. And then, I've got 2 great kids, one in college, one that's about to graduate from high school. And, how much did I contribute to that? Well, I would like to think that being their father and watching over them over the last 17 to 20 years that I've put a lot into that. But some of it is definitely on them as well. But it's something I'm proud of. Something else I'm proud of, and actually, it's over my shoulder right here. I have directed 2 short films, one of which won an award. It's something I'm honestly proud to say I was able to do, and would love to do again someday. But that's not for me right now. Maybe one day I will be back in the director's seat. But it is something I'm proud of. What is it you're proud of? It doesn't have to be big. It can be super small. Maybe it's that you managed to lose 10 pounds last year. Maybe you're proud that you finished high school, finished college. Maybe you're proud that you managed to find a good paying job, a job that you're happy with. Whatever it is for you that you're happy about, put that down. It definitely will change your outlook on what a goal is and whether or not you can accomplish them. Now, number 2, and this may be a short episode today. Number 2, your goals, not somebody else's goals. And I think this is super important. And I see this a lot. People will talk about, I'm setting my goals. I'm setting my work goals. My boss has this goal for me. Okay. I'm not talking about setting goals that your boss set for you. I'm talking about your goals. Now, your personal goals, your goals for work, what you want work to look like, your family goals. Do you have goals for travel? Do you have goals for personal growth? What are your goals? What do you want to see out of your life? Do you have spiritual goals? Do you have things that you want to see in your personal spiritual life? Maybe your prayer life is not where you want it to be, and you have some special goals that you want to set there. These are things that can be included in your goals, but they have to be your goals. Going back to Jim Rohn that I mentioned earlier, one of my favorite quotes of Jim Rohn, he says, if you don't design your own plan, chances are you'll fall into somebody else's plan. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. And I totally agree with that. Don't fall into someone else's plan. Don't bend to someone else's whim. If it is your wife's goal to do something, that's great. Help her accomplish that. But that may not be your goal. Now, can you have family goals that are something that you want to do with your family? Absolutely. That's your goal. If it's something that you personally want to accomplish. And goals need to be personal. If goals aren't personal, they're not going to be effective. Now, number 3, you need to have some short-term goals and some long-term goals. You notice earlier I said I managed to accomplish one of my 5-year goals. Kind of surprisingly, I hadn't expected to be able to accomplish that goal this year, especially in 2020. Things just kind of fell into place and I was able to do it. Other short-term goals. Short-term goals can be something that can take a day, a week, a month, something that may take a full year, but a short-term goal is something you can definitely accomplish this year. Long-term goals are things that are going to take more than a year, maybe 5 years, up to 10 years. And I encourage you to go ahead and write things down that are 5 and 10-year goals as well as 1-year goals. If you write a bunch of goals and you realize, hey man, all of these goals, they all are going to take more than 5 years, then you probably need to go back and look through those, see if there's any of those goals you can split up. Is there a goal that's really big, but it could be split up into 4 1-year goals? Then do that. You need to have a set of 1-year goals, some 5-year goals, and definitely have some 10-year goals. Why is it important to have those goals? Well, as you go through this process, you're going to see that you're reaching for these other goals when just because you wrote them down and you took time to flesh them out some. And maybe they're not the goals that you're aiming for this year, but maybe you managed to get a little closer to that goal just because you are becoming a better person, because you're working on yourself more. Now, number 4, have lots of goals. Now, I say lots of goals, and that's pretty generic. Let me tell you, when I sit down at the end of the year, beginning of the following year to set my goals, I have a list. I make a list of about 50 goals that I want to accomplish. Now, do I work actively on all 50 of those goals? No. No, I do not. Some of those are 10-year goals. Some of those are 5-year goals. Many of those are 1-year goals. I write down the big list. It helps me to kind of lay out a plan, lay out a structure of what I would like to see over the next, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years, how I want my life to work out if everything was perfect and God willing. And that is definitely a key. We are a Christian podcast. So, these goals have to be in line with what God has planned for me. And I pray that I am prayed up enough and that I am connected with God enough that when I'm writing down my goals, they're goals that God will approve. And that's something you want to think about when you're writing these goals. But I do lay out about 50 goals every year. And once I lay that list out, if you're doing this for the first time, you're laying out a bunch of 50 goals, it can be kind of hard. If you've already done it once you've got this list of 50 goals, the next year, at the end of the year, you go back through the whole list of 50 goals. You may find there's some goals on your 50 goals list that you're like, yeah, that's not a goal for me anymore. That's not a goal for me anymore. Not because you can't accomplish it, not because you don't want to accomplish it, simply because it doesn't make sense for you and for the path that God has for you right now. And that's perfectly fine. I do that every year. In fact, this year, I went back through my 50 goals and I realized there were about 5 goals that I had. Some were 1-year goals that I went, that's just not where my life is headed anymore. I don't have that as a goal anymore. I'm going to mark it off. And then I fill that back in with a different goal that makes more sense for my life. Getting 50 goals the first time can seem kind of daunting, but I promise you, if you'll take the time, sit down in a quiet place, play some classical music, do something that will settle your mind a little bit, pray for a few moments, and just ask God to guide you and lay out 50 goals. And they don't have to be specific. Right now, things can be super generic. It can be, I want to lose weight. This is where it can be super generic and super soft. Later on, that's where you make things more specific and turn them into real goals and not just a list of things that I would like to have happen. Now, the other thing is figure out which of these 50 goals really makes sense for you to focus on. I personally choose about 5 to 10 every year that I'm going to use the Goal Process 101 process to figure out, to plan out the whole thing, how I'm going to accomplish this goal over the next year. I think 5 to 10, if you're getting started, 5 is a great way to do it. If you're more accomplished, if you've been setting goals for a long time, 10 goals may be right for you, but everybody needs to start somewhere. But I challenge you, choose at least 3 and set up a plan for 1 year of how I'm going to accomplish this goal. Now, what is a goal? A lot of people in business talk about SMART goals, and I'm going to just run through this pretty quick because I do think this is important. They talk about SMART goals. So it's SMART, and each letter means a word. So we've got S for specific. So when you've got your goal, you want to take that goal and then maybe you've just said, I want to lose weight. Okay, that's not specific. So what can you do to make that specific? Put a number on it. I want to lose 10 pounds this year. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 50 pounds. I definitely need to lose 50 pounds. Uh, that is a working goal of mine almost every year, and I don't usually accomplish it. Last year, I managed to lose 20 pounds. I'm super happy about that. But did I hit my goal? No, but you know what? I'm a lot closer than I ever was before. So be specific, dial it down, write it out, figure out what it is, not just a generic idea. I want to read more books. No. I want to read 12 books. I want to read 6 books, whatever it is. Pick a number, be specific. Number 2, measurable. That's M. M for measurable. What do I mean by measurable? Well, 10 pounds is measurable. It's trackable. I can go get on the scale right now, know how much I weigh right this minute. And along the way, over the course of the year, I can reweigh and I can see where I am along this journey. I can see how much closer I am than I was. So, I want to lose 20 pounds this year. That's great. Okay. So I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm going to weigh today, find out what I weigh. And as I go along, maybe it's every week, maybe it's once a month, you have to pick this plan. You have to determine what the plan is, but every so often, check in. Are you headed toward the goal? Are you getting closer to it? Or are you getting further away? Have you already passed your goal and you need to really redefine what your goal is because you've already reached it? I want to read 6 books this year. Well, that's measurable. You know that 6 books over the course of 12 months. Well, that means I need to be reading 1 book every 2 months. So you can look and say, okay, I've read 3 books and it's only April. Well, I'm way ahead of where I had planned to be. Maybe the books I'm reading are too small. These are things that you can measure and figure out where you are along in the process. Now, the next 2, I kind of combine A and R in the SMART. It's attainable and realistic. And a lot of people try to separate these 2. I think they're really one and the same. Is it attainable? Is it realistic? So let's look at a goal. Is it attainable for you? Is it realistic for you? What's realistic? If the goal is this year, I'm going to make $1 million. Well, if you've never made $100,000, making $1 million might not be realistic. It might not be attainable this year. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm not saying you can't do it eventually. But maybe if you've never done anything even close to that before, maybe that's not realistic for a 1-year goal. Maybe that's a great 10-year goal for you. Build up your wealth and get there. Definitely challenge yourself. But is it attainable and realistic? Now, if I say, if I've not read any books over the past year and I say I want to read 36 books this year, well, that's several books every month. That may not be realistic. Is it attainable? Theoretically, it would be easy enough for me to get 36 books and try to read through them. Is it realistic? Am I really going to be able to get through the books fast enough? Now, at my reading speed, this is my personal thing. My reading speed, probably not, unless I use audiobooks. And I do use audiobooks. I love them. They are my thing. I actually used to record audiobooks, believe it or not. That used to be my full-time job. But, make it attainable, make it realistic. Think through your goal. So if you've never spent time trying to lose weight, maybe losing 50 pounds in a year is not attainable and realistic for you. But maybe losing 20 pounds is. Maybe reading 36 books is not realistic, but reading 12 or 6 books in a year definitely is. So think through what is attainable and realistic for you. Now, T for in the SMART is timely. And what's timely mean? Put a date on it. Is your date going to be December 31st? That's great. You've got a full year to accomplish this goal. But maybe you look at your goal and go, this goal could be done next month. Put a date on it. Now, even if you don't accomplish it by that date, don't feel like that's a failure. Simply change the date. Push it out a little further, but make sure you have a date on it. Now, here's the big thing that most people miss. Set time aside to accomplish your goals. You have to take time out of your busy schedule. You need to schedule it. Schedule some time every day, every week. Schedule some time to be able to focus on this goal and say, I'm going to focus on this goal at this time. Let's look at the reading goal. You want to read 6 books over the course of a year. So if you were able to set aside, let's say 1 hour prior to bedtime every day that you are going to take some time to read, that's setting aside time for that specific goal. Now, I don't necessarily recommend setting aside time every day for each individual goal, especially if you're setting 5 or 10 goals over the course of the next year. 10 goals, 10 hours a day, not realistic. But I do recommend setting some time aside. So maybe you set aside an hour a week to go through your goals and go, okay, this is a goal and I can do this right now. Go do that thing. This is a goal I have, and next week I can plan 2 hours to do this particular part of it. That's a great way to set aside time for your goals. Now, Zig Ziglar has a great quote. Many of you may be familiar with him. Once again, a believer who dealt with the business world, a great speaker, a great man who passed away many years ago. But he said, what you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. Now, I'll read that again. What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. And I think this is the key. And to put this in a spiritual vein, maybe your goal is to read the Bible this year. That's a great goal. You want to read through the entire Bible this year. Great. Now, what's important about that? Is it important to read God's word? Absolutely. What's more important? What God makes of you because you spent time in his word every day. That's the key. That's the key to goal setting. It's not about achieving the goals. It's about what you become because you've put the work in to set goals and achieve them. Well, that's what I want to leave you with today. But before we go, I do want to pray a blessing over you. May the God, maker of everything under heaven, bless your plans. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord. In the name of Christ. Amen. Hey guys, we'll see you next week.